Evidence of day 15 at tranche 2 phase 1 of the Undercover Policing Inquiry. We've been hearing from Bea, who was deceived into a year-long intimate sexual relationship by Trevor Morris, who she knew as Bobby. So there was my tweets this morning, I kept changing between Trevor Morris and Bobby, but they're the same guy. I'm joined with Eveline Lubbers from the Undercover Research Group, as often am, and James from Counterfire. What do you think of this morning's evidence, Eveline?
Yeah, I think she did very well. Like Bitting said at the end, like conveying a picture of the impact it has to have been deceived in a relationship, and to be sort of afterwards confronted by all the reports that have been written about you and your group, which don't match your daily life at all. Totally overdone, overemphasizing violence and risks. And also, well, she was she was very clear in pointing out that she was recently divorced, having 2 small children, only just got into London, was really needing new friends, needing a new political environment, looking for a social life, basically. And yes, there come the Spycops and Vulture targeting her. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that highlights a. Oh yeah, sorry, I got to stay on camera, haven't I? A salient point with the victims and how they're picked. It seems to me that there's been a lot about the sort of tactics involved with the women that have been selected in terms of mirroring, but there seems a more preemptive way of selecting. Certainly Bea. I mean, I haven't heard. There hasn't been that much more evidence given from any other women victims in tranche 1, was there?
This is the first from tranche 2. In tranche 1, there was Madeline, who was deceived into a relationship by Trevor Harvey.
But it'll be interesting to see how Jenny was selected in this afternoon's hearing. Also, I think from last week's evidence and today as well, it seems there's a lot of talk about Chris Banbury, and there doesn't seem to be any reason why he is not giving evidence himself, unless he said he doesn't want to, because he seems to be got to Bristol for a meeting last week, so I'm sure he could get down here, and he doesn't seem shy about speaking. So, but yeah, I think very powerful, and really does highlight the gap between the truth and the actual events and what these guys are reporting, and the manufacturing of a dangerous situation in Welling seems to be particularly concerning from today's evidence.
Yeah, you can really see like a really direct relationship between this quite fanciful story of like an arson attack that the SWP was supposedly planning, and the really intense, over-the-top policing of the demonstration that day. We were taken to we were taken to like maps of like the area again where the Welling demonstration took place, which it's kind of a bit weird, to be honest. The evidence is like, here's a map, yeah, okay, and like I can picture the streets, but I think it really like the manufacturing is the right word to use when we're talking about how and I mean. Also, like we saw it as well with the way that like Trevor Morris reported on Bea, that like he claimed that she was like the marketing officer for the SWP, and she was like, no, I did a bit of telesales in the print shop, and it's partially just to it's part of his own self-aggrandizement, which is something we've seen time and time again from undercover officers, claiming to be closer to those people who are making decisions, closer to those with responsibility within the party or the organisation in which they're infiltrating. It was quite funny in a way, but also it really kind of and Bea laughed quite a lot when those bits were being read out, which was nice. But it does like show in way in which like it's a complete it's a fantastical account of what is actually happening in these organisations they're infiltrating. But there's a lot of these officers are fantasists. Trevor Morris certainly was. I'm trying to think of other things that I want to say about this morning.
There's also this, it's not sort of upping themselves their ego, but it's also justifying the fact that they are infiltrating these groups while there's in fact nothing to report. And it's like someone said on Twitter, like it's the 63rd time where you see they are in a group where there's nothing to report, and they continue to do it continue to invade privacy, basically, and even more so with relationships, where you really think, why all this money, why all these breaches of privacy? It's terrible if you think about it.
Yeah.
I think it's also highlighted that even after 25 years, I think to the mid-90s of the SDS, there's still no understanding of the left wing at all. So that he turns up as a caricature of a left-wing activist dressed as like Citizen Smith, basically. And also that they've also regimented and standardised their forms of exit, so much so that they almost give themselves away by writing a letter from Egypt to a lady he hadn't seen in a year. And, you know, they've clearly, you know, indoctrinated that system of exiting their deployments by the mid-90s.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most sort of like moving bits of Bea's testimony today was at the end when she explained how she felt about finding out that Trevor Morris was undercover officer. And I mean, like, yeah, it was 25 years after the infiltration into her life, but it still had really chilling effect. I mean, so much so she ended up moving abroad. How she was worried not just for herself but for her children, the paranoia, the feeling that she was being followed, that her phone might be being tapped. I think these are all things which those of us who were infiltrated, and particularly the women who were deceived into long-term intimate relationships, you know, I've talked about like the real effect that that finding out, as much as the infiltration itself, that effect that it's had on them psychologically and emotionally. Yeah, it's really, I mean, as we've said so many times, all of it is so incredibly disturbing. But like, I mean, hearing it from Bea earlier on was particularly emotional for everybody who was there. Is there anything else anyone wants to add?
Want to go have lunch?
Yeah, you may have noticed that Eveline is trying to like secretly eat whilst doing this because we don't get long for lunch. The breaks are quite short. Anything you want to add, James?
No, I think that's everything. I did the quote of him describing himself as a functional schizophrenic, I think, is highly problematic in terms of how you describe mental health problems, and another area where he doesn't seem to have a much grasp on.
Yeah, I mean, and that goes for the entire unit, right? I mean, they were very, very quick and easy to play with trauma and to invent some quite intense and over-the-top scenarios, which they used as their backstory and for their withdrawal story. There was one earlier on about like how, I mean, Bea didn't even want to say it out loud because it was like so disturbing, but like the idea that he'd left his previous wife because he'd had sex with her sister. And there was something from people who said it was a bit worse than that, but she just didn't even want to talk about it. I mean, this is the way they sort of like leverage trauma and leverage like kind of quite unpleasant stuff in order to keep people quiet, really, about what their backstories and stuff is. Anyway, we'll be back again this afternoon. I'll be live tweeting away as we go. Follow us on Twitter using the hashtag Spycops, and we'll be back this afternoon for another reaction to this afternoon's thing. Do a Twitter Spaces in the evening as well, as usual. Cheers.